Making your own carbide wood turning tools is a great way to save money and to customize a tool to your own needs. Some of the basic materials that you're going to need to get started are carbide cutters, screws for the tips, steel bar or rod, material for the ferrule, material for the handle, and a really strong glue. My go-to ferrule material is copper pipe. It comes in different sizes, it's cheap, it's readily available, it doesn't really rust when it gets wet, it's easy to turn on the lathe. And if you want to use a different material, say as brass or aluminum, just take into consideration the weight that you would be adding to the front of the tool. You can also get copper in different wall thicknesses, as in type M or type L, to have a thicker ferrule. I prefer to use wood for my handles. I like the way it feels. I usually use ash wood, but I can use any other type of wood. And for the steel, I use 1045 carbon steel. No particular reason why. I'd probably prefer stainless steel, but the carbon is what I have in my shop. So with this particular carbide tool that I'm going to make in this video, I'm going with a larger handle, and I usually like to embed the steel as much as I can to make it really sturdy and strong. So for this particular roughing tool, I'm going to embed the steel about 7 inches into a 21-inch long handle, including the ferrule, and enough steel for protruding 7.5 inches of steel outside of the handle, which with the handle lathe will give me about 4 to 5 inches reach over the tool rest. And this steel bar is a 1/2 inch bar, and I picked the 1/2 inch bar to correspond with the size of the carbide cutter that I have, which is just a little bit shy of 5/8 inch. And again, this would depend on the size and type of cutter you have and whether or not you want to grind the front of the bar or not. And for the screw, I'm going to use a tapered head, not a panhead screw, and it's 832 with a corresponding tap and drill bit, which I believe is a number 29 on this chart. As for the square carbide cutters, this is a pack of 10. I don't remember the brand name, but you can get them online. And this is a 14 millimeter size square carbide cutter with a 2 millimeter thickness. Here's a tip. When you use the tapered head screws, a little bit of it will protrude on the underside of the cutter, and it'll make it so that the cutter won't tighten completely to the steel bar. So you're going to have to use a chamfering bit to chamfer the hole. Another quick tip about the screws is you can use pitch gauges, either metric or imperial, to find out what the pitch is of the screw that you're going to use, and then you can get the corresponding tap. Now I just need to cut off the remaining steel that was left behind and clean up the profile and chamfer the back edge. Now I'll make sure that the top and the bottom are at 90 degrees and that they are parallel. That is important. That is why I use the Dremel tool in the router table. I also switched over to these screws, same 832, but it has a star head instead of a flat slotted screw. Well, I had a bit of a glitch or a little setback. The first router bit that I used was a 3/4 inch diameter router bit, and I needed a 1/2 inch. So the first slot is too wide and the second one is just right. Well, I could do several things. I could fill the hole, I can reroute it, I could start over from scratch, I could just keep going, which is what I'm going to do. It's not affecting the function of the tool at all, it's just the aesthetics. And if this was for a customer, I definitely would have started over from scratch. I will also need to increase the diameter of the ferrule to cover the larger hole. Hey, I'm not sure where I heard this from, but they say the only difference between a master and a beginner or a novice is the master has more mistakes under his belt, or her belt. The bar had a nice tight fit in the 1/2 inch channel, but I do want to allow some room for glue, so I'm going to sand this channel just a tiny bit. The glue joint isn't as good as I wanted it to be. The table saw blade is a little dull and there was a lot of burning, so the glue joint isn't very smooth. And surprisingly, the wood glue actually glued the steel bar into place. I usually remove the bar before the glue dries, but I had forgot this time. Well, there's no worries of that coming out. So I'm going to use some smooth column jaws on my scroll chuck and insert the steel bar and clamp that down and then bring up the tailstock, and that should hold it and keep it pretty true. Well, the only thing I can see that's bad about this tool is what I have to clean up after using it. Especially the Paduk or Paddock or however you want to pronounce it. Well, despite all the issues with making this carbide tool, it came out really well and it works well.
Yeah, as long as you learn
Well,
from
thank
your
you.
mistakes, I think you'll be
Well,
all right.
I hope you stuck around to the very end and enjoyed the show. And as always, stay safe in your shop at all times. Take care and thank you.